All right. So, welcome everybody to this conversation with Stephan Lorenz, a bird tour guide. Couple administrative things first. Everybody is on mute to cut down on background noise. If you are watching this via Zoom, you can post your questions in the chat box, and then I'll ask those of Stephan. And if you are watching on Facebook, you can post your questions in the comment box, and those will get relayed to me. So let me introduce our guest tonight. That is Stephan Lorenz. He was born in Germany, but moved to the United States at a young age and began birding in Texas. He completed a master's focusing on grassland birds, which I also did, then joined various research projects in Australia, Jamaica, Costa Rica, and especially Alaska. Stephan also has a broad background in education, including teaching college-level biology and working as a biologist educator for the National Audubon Society. And he now leads tours for Rockjumper birding tours and high lonesome bird tours. He has birded all over the world, from Alaska to Colombia to Papua New Guinea. And also I should mention that he was my bird tour guide for my trips, my high lonesome bird tour trips to Honduras and to Colombia. And as I've told Stephan before, if I had the time and money, I would follow him around on all of his tours, and he would just be sick of me because he's such a great guide and a great guy. Also, disclaimer, I've been birding with high lonesome bird tours. I'm planning my own birding vacation with Rockjumper for next year, but this is not a National Audubon endorsement of Rockjumper or high lonesome bird tours. Although I do want to note that National Audubon does have a partnership with Rockjumper Tours and Holbrook Travel to promote ecotourism and bring birders to biodiversity hotspots that would really benefit from those avatourism dollars. So if you want to go birding overseas and promote bird conservation, look into National Audubon's ecotourism. All right, so Stephan, thank you for joining us this evening. I think let's just start from the beginning. And how did you become a full-time bird tour guide?
Okay, well, first of all, Dan, thanks for having me. Appreciate the chance to be here. And everybody that's joining remotely and listening, thanks for joining and thanks for listening. We're happy to have you. Should be quite exciting. Little informal chat here. And just to clarify, Dan, I'd love to have you on all of my tours. So yeah, sign up for as many as you can. Well, just to keep it brief, I started birding relatively late by many standards, actually at the end of college, so in my early 20s, but I picked it up pretty quickly, really got into it, and did mostly field work at first, biological field work, and then went back to school to get a master's, working on grassland birds. And then by chance, I had the opportunity to go to Costa Rica to a small eco lodge down there to be the resident guide for several seasons. And that's really got me started guiding. And after that, I was just hooked, sharing nature and birds and landscapes and cultures with people. It's just really exciting. And seeing people watching their first neotropical birds, I mean, it's just, it's the best experience you can have. And I love traveling, I love birding. So this is really a great opportunity. And I'm very lucky that High Lonesome Bird Tours on Rockjumper have given me this opportunity.
So over your tenure as a bird tour guide, how many countries have you been to approximately?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it would be countries I've been to probably around 60. Not all of them for birding. I was lucky when I was younger, my family traveled quite a bit, as much as they could. I'm German. Germans really like to travel, including my parents. So even when I was younger, I got to travel quite a bit. And for birding purposes, I've probably been to between 30 or 40 countries. And luckily, what I'm really happy with is I had the opportunity to visit every continent so far. So
wow.
I've done a little bit of birding on every continent, yeah.
Do you regret not being a birder when you went to some of those countries as a kid that you haven't been back to?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree I do, but I always tell people, it's just be happy you discovered it at some point in your life, whether you discovered it at 8 years old or 80 years old. I mean, you still have this opportunity to kind of see the world through this unique lens and have these richer experiences. So no, not too much regret.
Fantastic advice. So, of all those countries you've been to, what's been your favorite overseas destination and why?
Okay, I mean, I have yet to find a place I don't like for bird watching.
Fair enough.
I'm still searching. No, they're all amazing. I mean, they all have their unique things. I'd say in sort of this part of the new world, I'd say Colombia, which you gave a great presentation about. It's just awesome, awesome diversity. It's a lush green country, friendly people, and they're putting in these fantastic eco lodges all over the place. Tons of excellent habitat left, more so it seems than in other South American countries. And I mean, you bump into one of those feeding flocks in the Choco, and you kind of fall in love with it forever. And then on the old world, I would actually say China. China has really blown me away. I know it's the most populous country on the planet, but there's an amazing area of wilderness left and great national parks. And, you go from old world warblers to laughing thrushes, parrotbills, pheasants galore. It's just an incredible place. And the food is, of course, out of this world if you like Chinese food, real Chinese food, yeah.
Well, on the flip side, then, are there any countries you've been to that you didn't particularly enjoy and wouldn't want to go back as a guide?
No, I mean, honestly, I can't say I've come across any country that, I mean, there's certain places that are more challenging, but these challenging places in the end tend to be also extremely rewarding. One thing I must say that I found very interesting was last year I led a tour to Ghana for the first time, and the birding there was very different, very challenging, I thought, but I ended up loving it anyway because it's so much more rewarding what you get out of it. But it is quite an interesting experience because the birding in the rainforest there is quite challenging, very different from other places I've been to. But honestly, I've liked them all.
Well, you definitely have the right attitude for being a world traveling bird guide. So what do you mean by challenging? How is Ghana challenging, or how is any place particularly challenging for birding?
Yeah, when I went to West Papua, New Guinea for the first time, I thought that was challenging, and it is. But Ghana is, it's got great diversity. It's a small country, small West African nation, one of the best countries to go birding in West Africa because it's very accessible, very friendly people, and beautiful habitat. But the birds tend to be somewhat low density in sort of these mature tropical rainforest systems. So you don't have huge numbers, and they're so you're doing low density, and they can be quite skulky too. So that combination made it relatively challenging. But like I said, in the end, once you do get the species, it is so much more rewarding too.
So which countries have you not been to that you really would love to go and lead a group to? Like, what's your top 3 destinations you want to get to?
Oh, top 3. Okay. Well, I'd say Madagascar because I would like to complete the list of all the bird families in the world, and Madagascar still has at least 5 or 6 of those. And Madagascar is definitely there. One of my probably within the top destinations I want to go to. Another one would be Mongolia because it's just such a unique place. It appears to be landscape-wise, and I do like that sort of open country type birding. and those particular birds, accenters and snowfinches and things like that. And a third one, let me think. Well, I just pulling someone out of the hat here, I'd say Bolivia. Always been wanting to go to Bolivia. So that's a South American country I haven't been to yet. So, and it's got a huge bird list and lots of cool Andean birding, and that would be a destination that would be within the top 3 or top 5 for sure.
Well, I do want to ask you how you prepare for these tours, especially for a place you haven't been to. But first, let me mention that you also lead bird tours in the United States. So what's your favorite birding destination in the US?
That's pretty easy, Alaska.
Why is that?
I know it's a long ways away, compared to all the other, there are many great destinations in the US. I actually do want to be a bit of an ambassador for US birding for a larger international community. But Alaska is just spectacular. I mean, it's one of the last true wilderness places left on Earth. You don't have to go very far out of Anchorage, and you're in the middle of nowhere, essentially. I've been going up there since 2006, so almost 15 years now. And, every year I get excited again. I was really bummed out, of course, to not go this year. But it's, the migration, just the numbers and the spectacle of spring migrations in terms of waterfowl and shorebirds. It recalibrates your perception of shorebirds. You go up to Barrow, north of the Arctic Circle there, and you see them in display and singing, and it's just a completely different experience to what we're used to. And then we also do a lot of trips out to the vagrant hotspots like Adak and St. Paul and Gamble and even Nome. And those are always, we'll always have surprises. You never know what to expect there. And most recent years, we've gotten very lucky. So, I can always keep my fingers crossed there to maybe get 1 or 2 new ABA birds myself, if I'm really lucky. And then even the interior, the sparrow is breeding up there, and the warblers is just such high density and such vitality of life that's spectacular. And then you have all the other wildlife. I mean, the mammal watching is unlike anywhere else in North America, and you have a backdrop of beautiful scenery along the way and delicious food, fresh salmon, as much as you like. So yeah, it's just a really cool destination to go to, and a must for everybody to at least go there once.
Yeah, I did the Nome tour with High Lonesome Bird Tours, and Forrest Davis, the owner of High Lonesome, was the leader of that trip. And we went out and looked for some of those Asian vagrants and the birds that nest in the US only in Alaska. And it was really exciting, beautiful landscapes, and I would recommend it.
Yeah, and Nome in particular is one of the best destinations itself, because it has some of the highest diversity, and density, and you get bristle-thighed curlews on the nesting grounds there. I mean, it's very unique, and like I said, you'll never get tired of Alaska. It's a fantastic place. Yeah, by far my favorite in the U.S.
Very nice. All right, so I'm going to want to remind everybody, if you have questions for Stephan, please put those in the chat box or in the comment box on Facebook, and I will ask them. So how do you prepare for a tour? Whether you've been to, well, is it different for a country you've been to versus a country you haven't been to?
Yeah, it would be different. Let's first talk about 2 places I guess I have been to. Even before I joined Rockjumper, I'd already traveled quite a bit, either for field work or just on my own. I've done tons of birding trips personally, sometimes by myself or with my wife. And so I've picked up a lot of experience, sort of world birding experience that way. So if I've been there, what I would do is, first of all, you make sure that the logistics are airtight. You obviously check everything in the itinerary, double check hotels if you have to. If I do US trips, I do a bit of the planning myself, for example, calling restaurants and all that stuff. So that's all taken care of. And then you prep with the field guide if you need to. If if you need to review things, make sure you download all the bird calls. And what I mean is all the bird calls. Like if that's like a begging call of a great gray owl chick, you know, you have to have it on your phone. I mean, it's just, you know, or if it's just, you know, Xenocanto is a great resource for that. So I usually have, you know, for example, when I lead Colombia tours, I have about 12,000 recordings on the phone just for Colombia. Because you know, you have pretty much, you never know what you're going to need. If you're trying to lure out something secretive like a tapaculo or an antbird, you know, sometimes they'll respond better to the call note versus the song and so on. So I make sure I have that, double check all that. And then do research, you know, read trip reports from others, contact people if you have to. You know, I send out emails or questions regularly, and then really go down the bird list and figure out what's possible. You know, I've done some tours where you know, through research, you actually find a new location or something better, or you can add another endemic or near endemic by a small detour. So, you know, I've even gone back to reading old bird surveys from like the 1950s or something. I mean, that's probably going back a little bit too far, but so yeah, you do as much preparation as you can. Really try to figure out, you know, what birds are possible, prioritize which birds are important, and plan around that. And then if it's a place I haven't been to, if it's in the New World, you know, I probably just prepare the same way. If it's something completely different, I would actually do a recce tour. You know, basically go there and travel around the country beforehand and do some on the ground, you know, scouting ahead of time. Obviously becoming familiar with the birds, but also scouting is really important, you know, territories, locations, logistics, and so on. Yeah. So I have done that before. I've done recce's for South India, for example, and other parts of India. And in Ghana, for example, I did too. So.
Is that on paid time? You get paid to go do the...
No. The recce's, that's on our time. So, but you know, it's basically like a birding trip. So, but it's extremely helpful. And to me, it's very important because I do want to be able to give everybody on the tour the maximum experience they can have. You know, I mean, I want to, you know, do the best that's possible and make sure everybody gets to see as many birds as they would like to see. So when you're birding overseas, are you always with a local guide as well? No, not always. It varies. And, you know, sometimes you can have a fantastic local guides, and sometimes you can have local guides that have a little less experience or that may not. And I don't want to say anything negative about local guides here. Don't understand me wrong. There's some there are many actually that are absolutely world-class. But oftentimes we can bring a bit of a bigger picture. Like we, you know, I sort of know what birds are really critical for certain tours. You know, what's like important to a world lister or a photographer or something. So, but that said, I would say, if I have to put it in a percentage, maybe 70% of the places you visit have local guides. And many Colombia tours I do on my own, for example, without a local guide and so on. It really depends on the destination. In New Guinea, you know, you have to have a local guide. I mean, in New Guinea, you always end up with a bit of an entourage, Papua New Guinea. You know, you have a local guide, you have landowner, you might have the brother of the landowner, and then another landowner because you're crossing another piece of land. And so there's always a little army of local guides that go with you, which have sort of various interests in the birds actually. But yeah, no, in general, you know, and the local guides obviously are fantastic in terms, not just in terms of bird knowledge, but also in terms of relaying to everybody about the culture and history and things about the country.
Sure. And speaking the language, helping you get around.
Of course, yeah.
So we do have some questions from the audience.
Awesome.
How long do you have to bird in a place before you're qualified to be hired as a bird guide?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, I mean, I have done some tours completely blind. That's what we call it. You know, I've actually not been to that particular location, but I'll bring with it years of experience with that set of birds. For example, I've spent a lot of time in the Amazon, various places in the Amazon. So I technically would be able to go to another new location in the Amazon, and you know, I should do all right based on the experience I have and the preparation I would do, of course. So that's really difficult to say. It depends on the destination. Some countries are pretty straightforward. You know, I mean, you don't need to have that much background, whereas others, you might need several months of experience in the field. The Amazon comes to mind, for example, to really get a grasp of vocalizations and diversity and how birds move in the territories and so on. So the best answer here is that it varies a lot.
Yeah, so every bird tour company has multiple guides that they can choose from and choose the right guide for the right location that has the best experience with that location.
Exactly. Yeah, we make sure that you know, we have the right experience and background to be able to successfully lead a tour there. And that also goes, you know, we also work with the local guides so that, you know, there's a combination of knowledge that goes in there. You know, the local guide will know the exact whereabouts of that bird, you know, where it was seen 3 days ago. Whereas, you know, I will know, well, have we seen this bird at another location already? Or is it really important to get this species here versus looking for something else that we may not be able to get, you know, 2 or 3 days down the road? So that combination usually makes for, you know, it's the maximum benefit for everybody.
I've had a bit of that experience being on tours where you or another guide will say, yes, we might be able to find a species here, but next location is a better location for that. So I know you want to bird and find every single bird here, but we really need to move on. There's more birds to see. So there's always a trade-off between time and travel.
Exactly. And, you know, when I'm out in the field, I usually, you know, the vast majority of the time, I'm sort of target birding. You know, I'm out there at a location, and we're looking for something pretty specific. It doesn't mean we can't enjoy everything that's around us, but there's usually a purpose to a stop or a trail or a habitat, you know, just to add to the overall experience and overall bird list. Yeah.
There's more good questions coming in.
Great.
How many birds are on your life list?
Yeah, no, actually, I'm not that exact. I don't sit there and count up every night and wonder, but it's got to be somewhere around 6,800. That's roughly where I am now for world birds. Yeah.
Out of roughly 10,000 species in the world, so way more than half.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to 7,000. Yeah.
The first 5,000 is easy, right?
Yeah, not always. It depends on the species.
Also, someone wants to know, what are your tips for birding by ear?
Birding by ear, for me, what works best is repetition. You know, it's like learning a language, basically. So, you know, spending a lot of time out in the field, that's really the best way to learn. And if that's not possible, you know, I'll prepare playlists by location. That works better than just preparing like an overall country playlist or something. Because if you prepare it by location, you can sort of practice like you're in this particular habitat. You know, for example, if you have in the neotropics, you have antbirds. Some will be in dry forest, some will be in wet forest. I mean, it's oversimplified here. But it's good to kind of divvy out these playlists by habitat. So when you're in that habitat and you hear an antbird, you kind of not only know what should be there, but it also helps to narrow it down. So you don't try to study too many songs all at the same time. And what I do on tour a lot of times is either on the bus or the night before or something, I'll make a playlist for specific locations and either listen to that a little bit as a refresher, or it also just helps in the field to really quickly get to that specific bird call. And once you know patterns, it becomes easier. You know, like New World trogons, most trogons have a call that's pretty trogon-like. And once you know these larger patterns, then you're in a location. You may have never heard that particular species of trogon in your life, but you know it's a trogon calling. You know where you are, and you kind of deduce from that, oh, that's got to be a chocotrogon or something like that. Yeah.
I've always wondered how long after dinner are you up studying, preparing for the next day?
I am. I don't do much photo editing and things like that. What I usually do is I just prepare, and what I oftentimes do is, you know, look at what's been seen, look at what still should be seen, or hopefully will be seen, and kind of narrow things down, make a target list, try to figure out what the best strategy is going forward. So.
Well, speaking of camera and playback, what kind of gear do you take with you on these tours?
So just basically your phone. I use Android phones. I don't have stock with Android or anything. It's just I do like those. They seem to work really well for just putting calls on and getting them off, and it works well for me. Right now I'm using a little Bluetooth JBL speaker, which has a good Bluetooth range, which is important if you're trying to, you know, put it at the far end of a trail, trying to lure a tinamou or a rail across for everybody to see. And I use the Olympus mirrorless camera for photographing because it's a small setup. And, you know, when I'm guiding, photography definitely plays kind of a second fiddle. I mean, it's not, you know, if I get the opportunity, great. But number one, the most important thing is to get everybody on the bird and make sure everybody can enjoy it and see it well. And then if anybody in the group wants to take photos, help everybody get photos if they want to. So that's why I like to have a small camera with me at the most.
And then how many tours do you take in a year?
Yeah, it's can be quite a bit. For the last 2 years.
Not this year, of course.
I was very busy. And I can't even say the number of tours because it varies a lot because, you know, I do, the longest tour I do is the 30-day Colombia Mega. That's the longest tour I've done. I've done several that get close to that, you know, more than 20 days. And I do, you know, our Barrow tour is 2 nights, you know, like 2.5 days. So it's better to say by number of days. I'd say, yeah, I've spent up to about 220, 230 days a year on tour. So that would be a very busy year.
Wow. So what do you do to keep up your strength and your health on all these tours, back-to-back tours?
Yeah, it's a good question. One thing that's important, and this may seem completely counterintuitive on a bird tour, but getting sleep. And it's, you know, it doesn't make sense because you're thinking, oh, we're up owling and all that stuff. But what I do is I do things, you know, rather efficiently. You know, we're out in the field up to 14 hours a day. Like I said, I don't really edit photos, anything in the evenings. I just prep for the next day, make sure everything is ready to go, and then try to get as much sleep as possible. Although that may mean sometimes, you know, 5 hours or 4 hours a night, depending on the tour, where we are. And then, you know, the adrenaline keeps you going. You know, you don't really have the option of getting sick, so you don't get sick. And yeah, but I mean, it's just, you know, a huge enjoyment and staying hydrated. And that's another thing that I have to remind everybody sometimes, and myself. You know, you're excited, you're looking at a feeding flock that can take sometimes 2.5 hours to pass you, and you're constantly getting new species. So yeah, you need to keep reminding yourself to stay hydrated. That helps to keep your energy up.
And then what do you do in between tours to rest and relax and recuperate?
So I do quite a bit of traveling even between tours. You know, some additional birding. Oftentimes, if I get the opportunity and I'm already in the location, I might scout out a new spot, take an extra week or something, or an extra day here and there to go to another location, add some birds, and try to learn more about that destination. And then otherwise, there's a little bit of post-tour work. So that's mostly sedentary, sessile, typing away in the computer, editing photos and stuff. So, and I exercise. I love going hiking and writing, reading. So yeah, that's what I do.
Birding and more birding.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, sometimes if it's been a really long stretch, sometimes I'll get a stretch for almost 2.5 months of continuous tours and birding and things like that. I might take a break, a week or something, and don't do any local birding.
Understandable.
Yeah. Well, I still really enjoy local birding. I mean, when I'm in Houston, I still go to my patch when I get a chance. Yeah.
Someone wants to know if you have been to Point Pelee National Park in Ontario.
No, I have not actually. There are several of these really famous North American migration hotspots I've not been to, including Cape May and Maggie Marsh and Point Pelee. I'm sort of a little spoiled, birding a lot in Texas. I'm a little biased there. I'm not comparing the two, but we do get a lot of migrants passing through the Gulf Coast there. And I really enjoy that. So yeah, I've not had the opportunity to go up to Point Pelee for spring migration.
Well, since you spend more time away from home than at home, how did you decide to live in Texas versus any other place?
Well, I should say I don't really live there at this point anymore. For the last 3 years, really haven't spent much time there. Been moving around a lot, either traveling or on tour. So it's still the home base. That's where the mail goes to. But I really don't spend that much time there. We don't, my wife and I, we don't have a real permanent residence right now.
You're living in Iowa right now, actually.
I'm living in Iowa, actually, yes.
Yeah. What's the typical age of the people on your tours?
It varies. So to give you the extremes, the youngest 13, the oldest 93. So that is a big range. I would say the average probably 50s, 60s, but it's a larger range than people may, stereotypical. Everybody thinks of it's just retired folks or older folks, but not really. I get a lot of people in their 30s and 40s. So yeah, I wouldn't even say there's a real typical age. It varies a lot.
Well, I certainly am trying to travel when I can, but I also look forward to retirement when I have more time to.
Exactly.
Do you have a social media page where people can follow you and your adventures?
I have Facebook, like everybody else. Not much else. I'm not doing Twitter or anything. Facebook's enough for me. And I do have a blog, which lately has been, I wouldn't call it defunct, but it hasn't been any new stuff on it for a while, but it's called Birds on a Shoestring, all one word, Birds on a Shoestring. And that's referring to traveling the world on a shoestring budget, basically. So, but there is some, I wrote a lot on that blog for many years, so there should still be some neat stuff there to read about, like the horned guan adventure in Guatemala to birding in Antarctica and so on. So hopefully, if any of the listeners are going to check it out, I hope you enjoy it.
So someone asks, how can we be better participants, especially on a multi-day trip, which also links to the question I had for you, is how do you handle those interpersonal dynamics during these long tours?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. First of all, the important thing is everybody is there to enjoy themselves. And part of my task is to make sure that everybody gets the absolute maximum enjoyment out of the experience, and in many cases, adventure. I mean, a lot of these birding trips are adventures, adventures of a lifetime for most of us. So whether that means, seeing every single endemic possible, or whether that means just kind of being a little more relaxed, I got to make sure that I can accommodate everybody to what they like to get out of the tour. So that's one important thing that I try to do, is make sure, and in many cases you can accommodate. If some folks want to relax a little bit more, they don't necessarily have to go owling. But if somebody really wants to see all the possible night birds on the tour, of course we're going to go owling every night, as long as participants have the energy. And then also making a team. Now, I think that's really important too. We're all there for similar reasons. Like I said, we all enjoy ourselves. Most of the time we want to see as many birds as possible. And I think people really grow together and grow as a team, because having more eyes really helps. And everybody contributes. And I think that builds, it just makes the experience so much better. Sometimes I'll be looking down at my phone trying to line up a call on playback, and somebody happens to look up and sees a cool raptor going over. So I think having that team effort and team spirit really helps. And then on rare occasions, if things are not working out so well, I keep an eye on the interactions, and sometimes I may have to kind of make an announcement, as I like to call it, like just to clarify things. But I mean, the vast majority of the time, everybody's just having a great time, feeding off each other's energy, and just spotting stuff and enjoying the experience.
I can testify. I feel like everybody on the trips that I've been on has been responsible at some point for spotting a bird that no one else saw. So everybody helps everybody else, and I really appreciate that. But I also know that I personally can be frustrated if I miss a species, especially if other people got to see that. So what do you say to those folks that just seem like they are inconsolable because they're angry they missed a bird or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that. I mean, it can be frustrating. You've come a long way, but most people understand that it's nature and it will happen. But one thing that I personally try to do, if time and conditions permit, I'm going to try to make sure I show that bird to whoever missed it, and sometimes that means going out again extra and seeing whether we can track it down again, or explaining that, we have another chance for it later down the road, or sometimes there's nothing you can do if the bird just doesn't show again. But I will make every possible effort to show a person that bird. And sometimes this is where the local guide also, it comes in it's very practical, because occasionally I had situations where we're looking at something skulky, it didn't show for everybody. The local guide can move on maybe with part of the group that's satisfied with what they saw, keep looking for other stuff, and I can stay back and just keep trying. And, most people are pretty reasonable and realize, okay, we've tried to a point and it's just won't happen. But no, and the main thing is, I mean, I understand the frustration, so that's why I will always try my best to remedy that if that's possible. Believe it or not, I've missed birds.
I don't think you're the type that gets frustrated by that.
No, because I know it just happens. So
yeah. So clearly, a lot of your tours are focused on endemics. There are species that are skulky, hard to see. So what are some of the luckiest experiences that you've had on a tour finding a bird that you had a hard time with or didn't expect?
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. So much luck goes into it, I remember being on a small river in the Amazon, coming around a corner, and there was a harpy eagle drinking on the river, and it flew up right in front of the boat and landed on an open tree right next to the river. I mean, that's just a lot of luck. And memories you don't forget. Earlier this year, actually, I was leading the Colombia mega tour, and we unfortunately had a delayed flight, which is not lucky. But we got to this spot, and we were birding sort of 11 o'clock in the morning in white sand forest, which is not the best time to be in there, but that's the soonest we could get in there because of the delay. And just birding and then playing pygmy owls and trying to, you know, pull out whatever we could out of this rather warm, sunny location. And I picked up these small things just flitting around in the canopy, and there were Rio Negro gnatcatchers, which, I mean, there's very few sightings of that bird anywhere in the world, let alone Colombia. That was, I believe, that was probably a Rockjumper lifer. I need to check actually. So I didn't expect that. I mean, there's been so many lucky experiences. All the luck we had the last 4 years in Alaska with the rarities. Yeah, that brings me to one story from last year actually. This was lucky for everybody. There was a falcated duck that hung around at Potter Marsh, which is a wetland right outside Anchorage, a male falcated duck. It's 10 minutes outside of Anchorage, and hundreds of people went to see it. And most people got to see it, but this duck would hide. It's not a big marsh, but it would hide really well for hours at a time. And you had to stand by this busy road and just wait and wait and wait. You couldn't really go into the marsh or do anything, you just had to wait. And this thing was hiding sometimes for an entire day. It would be gone, nobody would see it. And then the next day somebody would drive up and it'd be sitting right, you know, in the open. But we were there with a group, and of course everybody wanted to see this falcated duck. It's a beautiful Asian duck with beautiful ornamentation and these plumes. And we were there probably for 3 hours, you know, waiting just like everybody else for this bird to show up. And we had to move on eventually. And I get in the van and I pull out and I start driving off. And the co-leader calls me on the radio, and all I hear is lynx. And at first I was like, oh, I don't think I really heard this right, but I'm going to turn around as fast as I can anyway. So I turned around, and somebody in the group actually, so this shows again that a group sees more, had spotted a Canada lynx walking through the marsh in the middle of the day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, just right outside of Anchorage, which I'd never seen a lynx despite being to Alaska many times. So we're watching this lynx, and we got to see it for 20 minutes. And, you know, we thought, okay, it's either going to eat the duck, the falcated duck, or it's going to flush it. Neither of which happened, and time was up, and, you know, I was on cloud 9 because of this lynx. I hope everybody else felt the same way. We had to go down to Seward, and on the way back, we, of course, had to stop for this falcated duck again. Same thing, standing by the side of the road, waiting. It was quite warm that spring, actually. And a couple of people had to go to the airport to catch flights. And we were literally down to 5 minutes. I mean, I'm not even embellishing this story. And one single duck flies up out of the marsh, comes kind of over this line of reeds and just drops down right in the open in front of everybody. And of course, it was a falcated duck. So we'd been staring at widgeons for hours. And I mean, just this thing came, I don't know, there was no raptor there was nothing there to flush this bird. It just all of a sudden decided to fly straight up, plop down in front of us. So it was a pretty lucky group, I must say, lynx and falcated duck out of the same spot. So that was a lot of fun.
Lucky ducks. You were all lucky ducks.
That was a lot of fun.
Wow. So what traveling advice would you have for someone who has never been outside the US before?
Well, I'd say it's actually, international travel is definitely easier and safer than it appears. I wouldn't say every country in the world is safe to go to, but the majority is. So it's more comfortable, easier, and safer than most people imagine. I mean, when I first started doing sort of my own traveling, I was kind of a little bit even amazed by that fact. And what I would also do is when you go traveling to international places, you got to be a little bit more flexible. You know, other countries don't have the same culture or standards that we're used to. And if you bring some of that flexibility with you, then you'll just have a better time. I know in Papua New Guinea, every once in a while you go down in the early morning in the lodge and, there's nobody in the kitchen, all the lights are off, and that's when I have to turn the lights on. I start cutting the fruit, I start running around, waking everybody up. But if you just, it happens. But if you're just sort of flexible and understand those things, it's just not the same everywhere. So if you accept those small mishaps, you'll just have a better time. And the other thing I would suggest is prepare a little bit, read up about the country, read up about the culture and the landscape. You don't have to do a ton of reading, but just a little bit of understanding before you go will help you appreciate it more. And for birding tours in particular, and you brought that up in your Colombia presentation, studying the birds ahead of time will also enrich your experience and just make it easier to appreciate the birds. So spending a bit of time before the tour will make it a better experience.
Yeah, one of our listeners here wants to remind everybody to make sure that your passport is up to date and you don't have less than 6 months left on your passport. I actually had that experience. I was all set to go on the High Lonesome Bird Tours tour to Honduras, got to the airport in Little Rock, and they wouldn't let me go because my passport was going to expire within 6 months of our return date from the US. So we ended up going to Puerto Rico instead, no passport required, had a fantastic vacation, and then went to Honduras the next year. So yes, be sure your passport is up to date. It's really important. And
yeah, that is a very good point. That is a very good point. The first thing I usually do is if I'm going to a new tour, another country or something, the first thing is I Google the visa requirements. That's really important. That's usually the first thing I take care of. Yeah, and just again, most countries you get a visa on arrival, or you don't even need a visa. Oftentimes it's much easier than you would think, but it's important to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure, and give ample time to get that visa.
Exactly.
Yep. So then also, what advice do you have for beginning bird watchers in general?
Beginning bird watchers, I would say, you can go out locally. You don't have to go very far, and just get the hang of it. And, just kind of get the hang of the mechanics and your binoculars and your gear. Like I mentioned earlier, I have a home patch in Houston that I really love. I mean, the Texas coast is a little, we have a lot of diversity there, but, it's just a small park and you can see tons of birds throughout the year to sort of practice and get the hang of it. And then studying, again, investing time beforehand to learn some of the birds. And if it's a completely new avifauna, like a new continent or something, at least try to become familiar with the main groups of birds. Like I remember, this was years ago, I was in Australia for the first time, and Australia has these little Australasian chats. And I always wanted to see one of these chats, and I hadn't seen one where it was working. They didn't have any. And I did a little bit of birding, and I was looking for yellow chat, which is one of the rare ones. And for some reason in the field guide, it was illustrated as like pretty big, like the size of a meadowlark. And I failed to read the size description in the book. I just always looked at the picture and I was like, wow, that's a cool looking bird. And when I finally found it, it's like this size of a house wren or something. And it totally threw me off for a long time. So if I would have been reading up and looking at the sizes and doing a bit more studying, it wouldn't have thrown me off as much. So yeah, that really helps. If you kind of just, the more time you invest beforehand, the better you'll get at it. But also, the reason is, we're there. We're there to guide everybody and to help everybody and to put everything into context. And that's the great thing about going with experienced people. A lot of times I will brief people on the tour, the day before is, what are we looking for? Why are we looking for this particular species? What to look out for. And even during a sighting, I usually explain what to look for and that really helps too.
Yeah. Well, on your tours in the evening, before or after dinner, we get together, we go over the bird list, the birds we've seen today, and then you'll talk about what's going to happen tomorrow, what species we're going to be looking for tomorrow. And that's helped me to focus my studying to get ready for the next day.
Yeah.
And the same applies also just birding in the US, going with local experts, Audubon chapters, local guides. So yeah, it's always good to have local expertise. So how has coronavirus affected you and your industry?
Yeah, unfortunately, as I'm sure everybody's aware of, sort of this type of industry, travel, restaurants, and everything else has been shut down for now. You know, with the travel restrictions and the risk factors, we're not running any tours. Tours have been postponed, rescheduled. Fortunately, we were able to postpone most of the tour. I had a really exciting schedule coming up, actually. I mean, it was tours sold out left and right. I had a good season coming up, but unfortunately, you know, I'm not the only one affected. I mean, millions of people are affected. So yeah, right now there are no tours, and things have been postponed, and we are all waiting and seeing when tours can resume safely, and we hope that will be sooner than later. But right now I am not touring and doing a lot of very localized birding in the US.
What are you doing right now to get by for the last few months?
So luckily, because I have done a lot of field work in previous years, luckily I was able to, I did a short field project, for example, in Western Wyoming with golden eagles, which was really a neat area to travel through. It's absolutely beautiful out there. It's the best place in the US probably to social distance, nobody out there. And it was a camping-based trip, so that was really fun. That was a 4-week assignment. Also a lot of underbirded corners there. I mean, it's amazing. Beautiful habitat, not many people birding that area. And now I'm continuing some sort of temporary field work.
So how can someone get on to one of your tours once tours get back underway?
Yeah, the best way to do it is check out rockjumperbirding.com. So that's just rockjumperbirding.com. If you're not familiar with Rockjumper, it is a company that I've been working for several years now, full time. It's based out of South Africa, and the Rockjumpers are a family of bird that is endemic to South Africa. And yes, I've seen them. They do jump between boulders and onto rocks, or high lonesome tours for many of the domestic and some international tours. Or you can just find me on Facebook and I'll befriend you. And if you have any more detailed questions, I'll even, my email address should be pretty easy to remember. It's birdingtravel@gmail.com. So just birding and the word travel@gmail.com. No spaces or anything. And, you know, I'd love for anybody to shoot me an email.
One more reminder, if you have any last questions for Stephan, please post that in the chat box or in the comment box on Facebook. I do have one last question for you, which is always the most important question I ask my guests, and that is, what is your favorite bird and why?
Who is just one?
Okay, top 3.
It can't be, oh man, it can't be an entire family or an entire group of birds or something.
I'll let you interpret that question as you wish.
Wow, okay, that's a really tough one. You're putting me on the spot. I'm not even sure I'll be able, I'm just gonna have to pull some out of my hat here. Seeing a shoebill, you know, I mean, that's sort of a classic bird that everybody wants to see, but being next to a shoebill, just a few feet away, literally, and the thing was standing there just like a frozen statue, and all of a sudden lunged forward and pulled up this huge lungfish that was bigger than its own head. And they do have a big head, shoebills. I'll never forget that. And it swallowed the thing whole. I mean, it didn't take very long either. So that was an amazing experience. Seeing Kagu in New Caledonia, which is another sort of monotypic, unique family, because I never thought I'd see that bird. It's just so exotic. Very ancient lineage of birds, semi-flightless, semi-nocturnal species. Kagu is pretty awesome. And then in the US, closer to home, I love all the sparrows, particularly Amadramus sparrows, like Leconte sparrow and Henslow sparrows, which I've done quite a bit of work with during my master's thesis. So yeah, sparrows are one of my favorite groups locally.
I'm with you. I do have a fondness for sparrows.
That's awesome.
Any more questions for Stephan? Well, great. This has been really fun, quite a pleasure. It's great getting to know you more, even though we have spent some time together. And I do look forward to spending more time with you in the field as soon as I can. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. And stay tuned for more interviews with more birders coming up and more travel adventures coming up. Have a good night.
Yeah, huge thanks to everybody. Thanks, and I hope to see all of you soon in the field. Take care.